All right, guys, so this is ecology. We're making a shift to go from plate tectonics and talk about the formation of Earth and how things got to where they be, to now talk about the different things that live on it and how they interact with each other. So when we take a look at ecology, we're actually talking about a branch of biology that deals with these relationships amongst the organisms and the physical surroundings around them. Now, in order to do this, we got to talk about biotic and abiotic. Abiotic is something that's non-living. So examples that we would see here would be like sunlight and heat and clouds and water and rocks, things that are totally non-living. Biotic would be things that are living. So things like plants, the trees, the bushes, the different aquatic plants like the lily pads. We can see a kangaroo there. We've got the fungus. Maybe someone that we don't always recognize is that biotic things can be things that are living or were once living. So that rotting log is a biotic factor. It is something that was once living. So we have to include that one in the biotic. Now, as we take a look at the ecosystem, we got to talk about the different parts. So the smallest unit of this, the least amount of things within it, is a single living thing, and that is what we would call an organism. Now, when you take multiple organisms and you put them together, you're talking about a population. If you take multiple populations, being the otter, the fish, the aquatic life, the coral reef, stuff like that, when you take the multiple of those populations, now all of a sudden you're talking about a community. And when you take that community and you put it into an area where it can interact with the physical things around it, the abiotic things, the sunlight, the water, the temperature, now you're talking about an ecosystem. All right, now taking the one from the document the other day, or from yesterday, we've got the antelope, which we would classify as just a singular organism, a singular species or organism. When you take multiple of those individuals and put them together, now we're talking about a population. When you take the populations of the antelope and the zebra and the wildebeest and the vulture and the lions, now you're talking about a community. And when you take that community and you put it in a place where it can interact with the physical things around it, like the sunlight and the clouds and the mountain forms and the air temperature and the water and different things, different abiotic things, now you're talking about an ecosystem. All right, now we got to talk about what happens when something changes. So you take this perfectly programmed ecosystem and then you change something in it. And let's take the Brazilian rainforest that was in 1975. It looked like this. It looks beautiful. It looks lush. And then all of a sudden, 2009, this is what we're presented with. So you're talking about massive amounts of deforestation. And obviously, that's going to have a major impact on the other things that are in that ecosystem. It's called a ripple effect. Right? So when you take the forest and you completely start eliminating many of those biotic factors, those trees, well, that has an impact on the other biotic factors. Think about the animals that need to live in those trees. Think about, because there's no place for those animals to live, then the animals that eat those animals that live in that forest no longer have anything to eat. And let's think about some abiotic factors now. Because that there's no forest, oftentimes we consider the Amazon, where the Brazilian rainforest is, we consider this to be the lungs of planet Earth. Because what it does is it takes in a lot of carbon dioxide and produces a lot of oxygen in return. It does a lot of the gas exchange for the oxygen that we need to breathe on the planet. If you start eliminating all these things, well, now all of a sudden you're affecting the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen on the planet. So there's a few other examples of where human beings have kind of come in and disrupted the ecosystems, and it's had ripple effects going down through other biotic and abiotic factors. Here are three good ones. Let's talk about the zebra mussels and the Burmese pythons first, because these are both biotic factors. So the zebra mussels, what they've done in the Great Lakes is they have come in on boats. So human beings accidentally brought them in on boats, and they made their way into the Great Lakes, and they have completely overwhelmed the ecosystems of the Great Lakes. You can see what they're doing to other biotic factors there. You can see what they're doing to that crustacean right there. You can also see that they're just sheer numbers. There's nothing there to kind of harness their replication rate, and they're overwhelming abiotic things, like you can see with our some of the human man-made piping that we have there. Things aren't working the way that they should be because of this influence from these zebra mussels. The Burmese pythons is also a super interesting one, because Burmese pythons were introduced to Florida because people were purchasing them as pets, and then when they got too big, they were releasing them into the Everglades in Florida because they didn't want them in their house anymore. And they grew to 15 to 20 feet long. There's no predator for them. And so because of that, they're just completely overwhelming the ecosystem there. You can see that they're big enough that they can take down an entire alligator all by themselves. Now, the last one that I wanted to talk about was, this is an abiotic one. This is fertilizer. So whenever you fertilize crops or you put them on your lawn, what you're doing is you're putting a lot of nutrients into an area where plants can access it. Well, when you get a big rain after you put that fertilizer down, the fertilizer gets washed into the waterways. And sometimes what that does is you put all those nutrients into the water, and that creates an algae bloom. So the plants that are within the water then have unlimited resources, and they just go crazy on all of this algae. Now, once they have gone crazy on the algae and they grow and they grow and they grow, they start messing with the oxygen content of the water as well, and it causes dead zones in the water. And those dead zones are areas where fish and other organisms can't live because the gas content has changed so much. So you guys can see, hopefully from this, that ecosystems have a very delicate balance of abiotic and biotic factors. And as long as everything is in line, the system works really well. When you throw one thing out or add one thing in, it has a big ripple effect all the way down to the other organisms. They're all connected, and it's very important that we recognize that and that we understand that. Okay, guys, you let me know if you have any questions on abiotic and biotic stuff, and we will talk soon. Good job.